Hey friends, Bruce with Cross Country 3 here. And this is about the humble arrival of the King. Luke chapter 2, verses 1 through 7. As you remember in that passage, the Bible tells us that Joseph and Mary are heading to Bethlehem. Why? For the birth of the King, the birth of their son and the King of the universe, Jesus himself. The humble arrival of the King is something we need to remember in days like these. You know, my friends, there are moments in life when it feels like life is spinning out of control. You've been there and done that. Well, so have I. Our plans change, detours appear, and nothing goes as we imagined. And yet later we look back and we realize that God was guiding every step. Well, that passage in Luke chapter 2, verses 1 through 7, and that's your homework, is to read through that glorious passage, reminds us that when life feels messy or even uncertain, that God is working his perfect plan in the perfect place and with his chosen people. So I'm going to break this passage down in that manner. Plan, God's plan. You know that GPS routing system that you have in your vehicle often reroutes you because of a certain action in the area in which you're traveling. Sometimes you hear the words recalculating or redirecting or rerouting. Sometimes in life we feel lost. Maybe when you're driving in your vehicle, you feel lost. I had one of those experiences pretty recently, actually. And so in that system, the GPS is rerouting you, taking you to the place that you need to go. Sometimes you don't see what's ahead of you, but the system does. The GPS system sees the bigger picture. Well, in the same way here, Caesar Augustus was the one that implemented the census for everybody to get from their location to the place that he wanted them to be. Well, it's interesting to note that he may thought that he was in control, but God was in control all along. You know, dear friend, God's navigation system in your life is always accurate. He may be rerouting you or redirecting you, but he's doing so with a bigger picture in mind. I want to note a couple of things under God's plan. First of all, that God's plan works through world events like the census. And we've seen that in our own history. We've seen it in America. You've seen it in your own personal life. This pagan emperor, Caesar Augustus, thought again that he was in control. Ultimately, we see that it was God directing history all along. Secondly, God fulfills his promises through unexpected circumstances. Micah chapter 5, verse 2 in the Old Testament tells us that the Messiah would be coming from Bethlehem, of all places. Bethlehem. And that's exactly what happened. So God uses world events to fulfill his ancient promise. The application, of course, is simply this, that just like the GPS sees what you can't, God sees the roads, he sees the traffic, he sees the detours, and he sees the destination of your life. You may seem confused, life may seem chaotic, and it may feel that way for sure, but God sees the completion. Now, that's the plan, God's plan. Let's look at the place, God's place. You know, jewelry stores place diamonds on that black velvet cloth, and they do that because the dark, humble backdrop of the diamond makes it shine even brighter. It's not the backdrop that matters, it's the beauty that's revealed through it. God chose humble Bethlehem, a lonely and lowly manger, for Christ to be born, for the Lord himself to be revealed. That was the backdrop, a dark place, so that Christ could shine even brighter. Bethlehem was a small place with a big purpose. Bethlehem wasn't impressive, but it was the setting. It was the perfect setting for God's plan and the greatest gift in all of human history. And think about the manger, not just Bethlehem, but the manger, God in unexpected places. You know, God enters the world quietly in poverty, showing that God is not limited by any setting or circumstances. So, dear friend, you may think that you're in the wrong place, the wrong job, the wrong season, the wrong town, but God uses small places, unexpected places at that, to display what? His shining, brilliant glory. Sometimes God hides his greatest gifts in the least expected places. So we know about the plan, God's plan. We know about the place, God's place. We know about the people, God's people. You know, a small team may have a huge responsibility. A coach once told the players on his bench this, and I quote, "You may feel ordinary, but today I need you." They weren't the stars, but when their moment came, their contribution changed the entirety of the game. I saw some of that in a college football game late last night. Joseph and Mary weren't the stars in society's eyes. They were the ordinary, but they were the chosen ordinary. They were willing, they were faithful. Get this, they were obedient. So we should realize this, that obedient people are entrusted with an extraordinary work. God didn't choose kings. He didn't choose priests. He chose a carpenter and a young, beautiful woman. That's who he chose. And their obedience made room for God's miracle. Friends, our obedience opens the door for miracles today. They, Joseph and Mary, traveled during pregnancy. They faced rejection at the end. How about that? Told there's no room at the end. They navigated through hardship, but they trusted God. You know, God uses ordinary people today like you. He uses ordinary teachers, parents, retirees, veterans, students, workers to bring Jesus into the world, the dark world in which we live. Your obedience and your faith and your love may feel small today, but God uses them in powerful ways. God does his greatest work through ordinary people. Just say yes and move forward by faith. So the story of Jesus and his birth reveals the simple truth that God's plan will not be stopped. God's place cannot be too small, and God's people cannot be too ordinary. You know that tapestry? Yes, the tapestry, when you turn it over, it looks like a tangled mess of thread, chaotic, messy, no pattern at all. But when you flip it back around, you see the beautiful picture that was there because the artist had been weaving it all along. Right now, dear friend, you may feel like you're looking at the back of the tapestry. Chaotic, messy, confusing even. Threads are everywhere, knots, no order. Seems like disorder. But God is weaving something beautiful in your life. Just as he orchestrated Bethlehem's night long ago, he is orchestrating the details of your life today. So what do? You trust his plan. You trust his place. And you trust that you are one of his chosen people. Take care, dear friends. Thanks for listening. Till next time, Godspeed.